right, so we're making sourdough today. I got my little thing here. I'm trying to figure out grams to actual measurement ratios today. So we're gonna do 375 grams of water. So I got 2 cups in here. And we're just gonna measure this out. 375. It says 378, so I would say that's about a cup and a half of water. I don't really have a good measurement for this, but this is the sourdough starter. It's more than doubled its size, which means she's ready to be used. So I'm gonna take this, give it a good little mix. It'll look nice and stringy like that. I'm gonna do 90 grams. So this looks like about 1/4 a cup right there. We're at 80. So I'd say about 1/2 cup of starter. Yeah. So, yep, about 1/2 cup of starter. It's a little over, but that's all right. And then we're going to whisk together your start here and the water. Get it to liquefy itself. Boy, it's easier to mix in and mixes in evenly. That's all mixed in there. Now we want to do 500 grams of flour. So this is the part where it's good to have kind of exact measurements on this. So I've got my unbleached, organic, non-GMO, all-purpose flour here. So we got 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups. It looks like we're getting really close, so I'm gonna get down to the smaller. Right there. So 3 cups and 1/4 cup makes 500 grams of flour here. And then we're gonna add in our salt. This is 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon is perfect amount of salt. And we'll take this and mix it together. I like to start off with my spatula just to kind of get things mixed in together. And it will get messy, so it's all right. Sometimes I get in here with my hands, but the spatula is kind of working real well for me today, so I'm just gonna continue using it. And don't worry about being absolutely perfect. What we want is it to kind of come together and start forming this ball. Get as much off of that as I can. And that is the beginning part. We're gonna let this sit for 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll do stretch and folds. But before we move on to that, we now need to refeed our starter. So you can see inside there, there's really not a lot left, right? That's actually that's enough to get it started again, plus on the spoon. So how I feed it, do 1/4 cup here. Pop that in there. Go over to my filtered water from the fridge. I have about 1/4 cup in here. I start off and I leave a little bit in there because I'm looking for the right consistency when I mix this together. It kind of depends on how much starter you have left on what the consistency is going to be. So I always, with the water, less is more. This looks like this is perfect consistency. I'm just going to sit here, make sure I scrape at the bottom of those edges, really get in there. Scrape along the sides as well to get all that bacteria back in there so we can feed the start again. And afterwards I just kind of go on the sides, scoop it down, go around, sure I get everything off my spoon here. So I had the most amount on it. Boop. Right back down into there. And then you'll just put your lid back on your starter here. And you have fed your starter. And then you just move your rubber band down to where your starter line is so you know how fast it's proofing. And that's the first part of sourdough. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes. This is what it's gonna look like. You got your clean filtered water here. I just like to go along the edge. You take it, stretch and fold. Stretch and fold. Stretch and fold. If there's any like clumps or anything in there, just kind of knead it a little bit. Stretch and fold, and we're gonna go around the bowl a couple of times. Sometimes I'll take it and shake it to fold it. Some people like to just kind of like put one hand down and fold it in. Put one hand down and fold it in. Put one hand down, fold it in. There's like a little clump here, so I'm gonna make sure that I kind of, okay. So now it kind of looks like this. So now we're going to cover it and set it aside for 20 to 30 minutes. All right. So now it looks like this. My hands are washed, but we're gonna take water again. I'm gonna go around the side of the bowl. I'm gonna do a stretch and fold. Now it's starting to really come together. Sometimes I pick it up and I shake it and I bring it around. I just kind of. At this point, if you want it to stop, you totally can stop doing the stretch and folds and move on to the next step. I'm gonna do it a couple more times, and then after that, I will show you what that looks like after a few more times so you can see the difference between 2 stretch and folds and like 5 stretch and folds. All right, so I've done 5 stretch and folds on this, or this will be the 5th time that I'm doing it. So it's got a lot smoother consistency. So I just wanna show you the difference between 2 stretch and folds and 5 stretch and folds. So each time I've waited 30 minutes in between. So you stretch and you fold. It's a lot smoother when you do it more times, but you can totally do it 2 times. There's been so many times where I did not have time to do 5 stretch and folds on this bread, and it made a perfectly great loaf of bread. So you do not have to do it that many times. I just want to show the texture difference between that many times for this loaf. So now we did our little stretch and folds around. I like to kind of make a little round ball, and then we're gonna put the saran wrap on it. Okay, so I like to just kind of make it tight. You can either do a lid. I've seen people do shower caps before, but I just make it nice and taut. And then you'll let this sit for about 8 to 12 hours, and it should double in its size by the time we're ready to do the next step. All right, so I'm gonna try and show you this without my little helper filming me. So wet your fingers. Go through the edge of the bowl. Go around, remove that from the edges. And then you take it, you lift it up. Like I have it way, way up. Then you fold it. This is called the coil fold because it's supposed to overlap each other. And then I like to rotate it. So we fold it this way. Now I want to fold it this way. So I take it, kind of shake it up, and we fold it. And I do this is building tension in the bread. And I do this a couple times until I get to this point where I'm like closer to the bowl. It's not really wanting to go down a little bit. And I kind of just do a roll right there because it doesn't want to really coil. So I built tension back into the bread. And there we have the first set of coil folds here. Now we're going to let this set for another 20 and 30 minutes. So I'm just going to put the plastic wrap back on it. It doesn't have to be perfect this time. I'm also going to put this over it as well, mainly so my cats don't get into that water too, so I can reuse that. I'm going to set it aside and we will let it set for about 20-30 minutes. Okay, so we had thought we recorded the previous section of this video, but we got a phone call and it just didn't even do anything with the video. So what happened was I did a second set of coil folds in the bowl, and then there was a clear top and bottom. One looked prettier and one didn't look so pretty. So we put the pretty side down on pre-floured surface, and then I sat here and I stretched out the corners of it. So you want to stretch it out. So I stretched it down, and I'm stretching it out. And so now that we have this, mainly you want it to kind of look like this, more like a rectangle. You can stretch it out however you want. I like the rectangle version of this. So at this point, you can add anything that you want to add into your bread. You can add parsley, you can add cheeses, there's so much stuff you can put in here, but today we are doing cinnamon sugar. Or if you don't want anything in there, you just roll it. So you skip this portion, but I'm gonna show you how you add in stuff. So I have my cinnamon sugar here. So I'm gonna give a generous coat. The cinnamon sugar here. Lots of cinnamon sugar. This is a Thanksgiving loaf. So I'm gonna spread all this. So this will be the inside of our sourdough loaf. Okay. And now I like to kind of go around the perimeter and add a little bit more flour. This will help shape it. So what we're gonna do is we're going to fold it back up. So just kind of pick the pieces up a little bit, kind of like a scoop and fold. Just kind of unstick the edges of this. So then you're going to fold it, and then you're going to roll and fold, and then I like to take this edge, lift it up, stretch it out, fold it in, take this edge, lift it up, stretch it out, kind of pinch these corners together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoot and roll. So we're getting a little flour here. Sometimes you're seeing a little extra flour. I'm going to scoot and fold. And we're going to roll the log like that. Now we're going to take some more flour along the edges, and we're going to scoot and tuck. So the purpose of this is to get the pretty side up, and I just take my hands and I scoop and tuck, scoop and tuck, scoop and tuck. That's my slow motion of that. Scoot and tuck, scoot and tuck. So you want the bottom of it to seal up, and if there's little bubbles, you kind of want to like push those out a little bit this is how fast I usually go with my scoot and tuck. Some people do a scoot, pull and tuck, but I find that this is okay. And I just kind of take my hands and I scoop it under and rotate so that it forms a nice ball. And the more you do this, the more the insides will spread, so now it's kind of coming out. So I'm gonna scoop that under a little bit, tuck it. I'm at the great consistency right now. I have a bowl with parchment paper and some flour in there that I'm gonna transfer this to. Put it in there. And then you can let this sit in the fridge. I cut these off right here, and then I put a tin foil over it so that it can go into the fridge. You can leave it in the fridge for an hour, even up to 2 days if you want. Some people say the longer it sits in there, the better it tastes or the better it proofs. I find either way, it proofs really well. You want the fridge to kind of chill this a little bit so that you can make your scoring a little bit easier. So we're gonna let it sit in there for a couple hours, and then we will come back to the best part, which is baking the bread that you've worked so hard on. In it goes. We are gonna wait a couple hours before I bake this. So we'll put it in here to rest. All right, so it has been in the fridge for a couple hours. So now we're going to score it. The sharpest knife I have right now is my fillet knife, so I'm gonna use that. And you can do fancy designs if you want to in this. This is your opportunity to make whatever you want. But a simple score like this would be enough. I'm gonna add a couple more onto it because it's Thanksgiving tomorrow, and I am making this cinnamon loaf for Thanksgiving, so I'm gonna do a couple more. There we go, so that should puff out nicely. And we'll transfer this into the Dutch oven. All right, so we've had the oven on at 500 degrees for a little over an hour. We've had this in the fridge for a couple hours. It's nice and scored. And it is time to transfer it to our nice hot Dutch oven that's been in the oven. Nice and heated, you wanna have it nice and hot. And then we're gonna put the lid on here. Don't mind my stove. I've been working on cooking Thanksgiving stuff. We'll put it in the oven at 500 degrees for 22 minutes. Be back. All right, so it's been 22 minutes. What I like to do is I like to put the lid off and I just put it up there. It's looking beautiful. Oh, and it just smells so good too. Turn the oven down to 450 degrees and we're gonna leave it in the oven for anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes to finish off cooking and crisping up the crust. All right, and it's time to take out our loaf. Look how awesome that looks. And that cinnamon's just oozing out and it smells so good. I'm gonna turn off our oven at this point. And be careful when you're removing this, especially if you add sugar in there. The sugar's really, really hot. And then you're gonna let that cool for an hour. This is going to continue to bake for an additional hour after it's been out of the oven. So don't dip into it just yet. You wanna let it cool. But that is how you make a loaf of sourdough. All right, so this is how the sourdough loaf turned out. It smells so delicious. Got a little caramelized at the bottom because of that sugar on there, but this is how she turned out. We're gonna cut her all up and put it out for Thanksgiving.